If you want to learn music real fast, you go about it in a paradoxical manner. You do it real slow. Just the opposite of what you'd expect. If you want to learn a lot of stuff real fast, you work on a very tiny amount of stuff real slow.
Hi, I'm Jay Roberts.
And I'm Brandon Beligni.
And welcome to the Howard Roberts Sessions, a video series dedicated to the legacy of my father, H.R.
So come and join us at the campfire while we tell some stories and listen to the music of Howard Roberts, one of the most heard guitar players of all time. We're so thrilled to be able to share his incredible journey with you all. Make sure that you subscribe down below, and that way you'll get all the videos as they come out. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to the Howard Roberts Sessions. This is episode 5, and we are really excited to show you the 5th and final installment of the Howard Roberts Project documentary. And if you haven't checked out the other ones, this would be a good time to go back and watch episodes 1 through 4.
And yes, it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, this 5th chapter is called the education years.
Yeah.
And this is where H.R. really got to dive into something that he loved, and that was teaching and education, starting off with the Howard Roberts Guitar Seminar, and then which migrated into Musicians Institute, which became a very legendary music school that's still around, and that started in about 1978. So this chapter kind of lays out the in chronological order how those things came about, and everything from beginning guitar, from brand new beginning guitar with a chroma system, all the way up to advanced players with his guitar compendium, the Praxis collection. So if you're into education, you're going to dig this one. H.R.'s unprecedented influence in music education continues to be highly revered, cementing his musical legacy and place in history. At age 17, H.R. was drawn to a class created by composer-theorist Joseph Schillinger, whose students included George Gershwin, Tommy Dorsey, Benny Goodman, and Oscar Levant. My dad swept the floors after class to defray his tuition, and that attitude was indicative of his precocious intellect and passion for music and science. He went on to create and help establish the first vocational guitar school in the world. Here's his story.
You learn what you want to learn when you want to learn it. You can learn just outrageously fast just by applying particular techniques.
H.R. as an educator really made a profound impact on the world of guitar education. H.R. taught at a place called Westlake Music. So he was always interested in teaching and was developing materials, but I think it's once he started the seminar concept that he started really focusing on the learning aspect and getting interested in how do you take somebody that's challenged with playing the guitar and how do you accelerate that quickly. So he was fascinated with that process.
And he made it practical. He made a practical path for me, essentially, to the studios.
He started doing seminars in about 1968, and I think the first one was in LA, and there were some great players were at the seminar. Lee Ritenour was there.
I had attended what turned out to be, I believe, the first Howard Roberts seminar in Los Angeles, which became the foundation for his music school and GIT and then MI and the Musicians Institute, and this was the seed that he planted. And he was a great educator as well, and he had a very complex mind when it came to the way he thought about things on the guitar and the structure and chords and melody and harmony, and He just had, you know, tremendous technique that was just beyond most guitarists.
I attended the famous Howard Roberts seminar. I was like a million guitar players that grew up in the 60s, that you know, grew up on the Beatles and Jimi Hendrix. And a lot of us stayed on, wanted to keep playing guitar as we got older, and maybe explore jazz. It was a mind-blowing experience. The Howard Roberts seminar was its own animal, and I learned so much about teaching music as well as playing music. But a Howard Roberts seminar was a 3-day event. You paid $100, and there's about 40 students. We were in a theater. Howard's on the stage, and it was awesome to walk in and sit down, and the first thing you get was a stack of paper about like this. The famous seminar materials, which we all grew to love over the next many years. And that's pretty intimidating. You go, holy crap, we're gonna go through all this. I gotta learn all this weekend. Howard comes out and he puts the crowd at ease like no one I've ever seen. Howard had a stage presence in teaching that had a way to relax everybody. He made everything seem simple. But I have to say, in his teaching and up in doing a clinic, some of those seminars were some of the best I've ever heard him play. Yeah, he'd be so relaxed, and he'd just be a matter-of-fact demonstration. Let me show you how to play over a 2-5-1, and somebody would hack out some chords, and he would just play just stunning examples of things.
Well, as a player, wow, yeah. Where do I begin, you know? Howard was one of the most jaw-dropping guitarists I have ever seen. Anytime we ever went to hear him play or see him play.
That seminar, I believe, was downtown LA. A few friends popped up in that crowd. Tim May, this is a very successful studio guitarist. Mitch Holder was there, who was studying privately with Howard, who became one of my very, very best friends, both those guys.
When I was 15, I was able to go to Colorado Springs for a Johnny Smith guitar seminar. It was one of the first ones that Johnny, it was the first one that Johnny did. And I was all excited, and Howard Roberts was the guest guitarist out there. The first time I heard him, it was like one of those, you know, just draws to your heart. And I said, man, the sound and the stuff and the taste and everything. You know, and then I started really, you know, investigating the things he did on Verve and the early records and everything I could, you know, about him. And he always played great. He just played great. But Howard just had a cool about him, and a taste and just a real appealing attitude that I loved. And the technique and his chords and the sound and you know, his expertise on the instrument was beyond compare. You know, what can you say?
But the one thing about Howard that I found wasn't the case with everybody was he was an open book. You could ask him anything. He influenced in his life starting GIT because he had a very high regard for education, and he thought the level of education wasn't high enough, and he wanted to raise the standard in guitar education, and he went out and did that. And he was one of the first musicians or educators who actually founded a school dedicated as a vocational guitar school to train guitarists to go out and work.
Teaching others to actually play an instrument professionally was not popular in those days. I remember the days when guitar players would actually turn the neck of the guitar away so you couldn't see what their left hand was doing. But Howard disagreed with that attitude. Consequently, he was just about the first professional guitar player that was making a good living playing music, that was writing materials that could actually help others to be able to do so too. Some studio and jazz guitar players actually ranked on him about this, then later rethought the point and released some of their own material.
I wrote a book, it was my payback to him for Mel Bay Publications, called The Jazz Guitar Stylings of Howard Roberts. I picked out 19 tunes to transcribe that go pretty much across the span of his career.
The publishing company started in about 1971 in LA, and he did books like the chord melody book, which is a well-known chord melody book, the guitar manual, the chord directory. Later on he did Super Solos, where he collaborated with Ron Eschday on that. The sight reading book, Super Chops, which was a series of technical accelerated learning books that he did. He also did one called Chroma, the Chroma system. It was really neat. It was geared toward beginners, brand new beginners that never played guitar. It used colored strings with fret numbers, and I worked with him a lot on that system, and we actually built and designed these small guitars that were designed for kids.
Hi, I'm Howard Roberts, and I'm going to guide you through the Chroma system. If you can recognize colors and count to 4, I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll be playing music and reading music and even making up your own music. Begin now to express the musician that has always been inside of you. Have fun.
His whole goal was to demystify the guitar for the masses. That's what he wanted to do with that. His ultimate collection of books was one called The Guitar Compendium. He collaborated with Gary Hagberg, which is somewhat of a culmination of all of his books brought into one location. These books are going to be re-released now.
One day, Howard was up here doing, I think, a gig, staying at the Edgewater Inn, downtown Seattle. We had breakfast one morning. This is about 1975. And he says, you know, what do you think about a school for guitar players? Like a school, like a vocational school. It'd be like a welding school. Guy goes for a year, he learns all this craft to be a good welder. We'd do that for guitar. It'd be like my seminar just stretched out to a year. What do you think? And I went, wow, yeah. Sounds good to me. So in 1976, more famous phone calls from Howard. Finally, the one came that said, we're doing it. And we're going to start in March 1977. You got 3 months to get ready. We got a building. We think we have some students. We got a promotional program together. We're going to call it GIT, the Guitar Institute of Technology. I got 2 other teachers. I got you. You ready? And I went, holy crap. Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. And so came about February, I loaded up my Volkswagen with everything I owned, my couple guitars and amps and clothes, and I had nowhere to go. Went straight to Hollywood and landed there, arrived late on a Sunday evening. Nowhere to stay. I went to a hotel. Next morning, went to the school, and it was in the Gower Film Studios, the Columbia Pictures Film Studios was the first location of the school. Walked in, and I was so out of my element, but I was having a great time. I didn't know who the other 2 teachers were. I later obviously learned that Joe DiOrio and Ron Eschday were stunning guitar players and intimidating. And I was this kid from West Seattle. My only ace in the hole was I had bonded with Howard, and I was kind of Howard's boy. And I knew a little more about Howard, because by then I'd put on, seen about 3 or 4 seminars, and I was pretty attuned to Howard's teaching approach, and I knew the curriculum inside and out. So I arrive, and then Howard comes in, and we go right to work formulating this curriculum, because really the curriculum for the original GIT was nothing more than the original seminar material stretched out to a year, just like he said. And he had worked out an outline of and he named courses. We're going to call one single string technique, we're going to call it fingerboard harmony, a sight reading and ear training, and the student will go to a couple a day for 5 straight days. All we had to do was take this seminar material and literally cut the examples out and paste them on a piece of paper that became Unit 1 single string technique. That was what we gave out to the students the next week. So Charlie would write down the stuff and make it look beautiful, and we'd cut it out. Kathy Shannon would type the sentence, she'd cut it out, and then we'd lay it on. And then sometimes Eric Pasco would be there, another new student at the time, another GIT legend. And a lot of the great teachers came out of being students at the school. And that's how the curriculum would be developed. And Howard just would say, just be yes or no. Yeah, let's do that. No, let's not do that. That doesn't work. And it was a fascinating process, even though we were a week ahead of the students. I mean, we'd be going, holy crap, what are we going to do next Monday in single string technique? We don't have the... So it took about a year to develop that curriculum, but seeing Howard's mentality and how he thought and how he wanted to teach, it was the coolest thing in the world. And Howard was the godfather, and Howard would come in and take care of the curriculum, work with us.
I used to pick Howard up at the airport at LAX when he'd come back from seminars. He would do seminars all around the country, and I have to say that from that mind, Howard's mind, which is a wild mind, came, believe me, came the ideas that still exist today in this school. The concept of this school started with him. I'm a kind of a mover and a shaker, doer kind of person, but I didn't have the ideas. I just knew how to carry them out. But the ideas that you are going to be experiencing this year came from this man.
When you play, and he was authentic at this, he was authentic. He said, when you play, forget chops, forget all your lessons, and just be with the music. It's all about the music. The music is king, and your ear is king, not your planned patterns, and not all of these things.
I was a true disciple. I really was on board with the way Howard explained things and the way he taught. Not that I knew it myself, but he just struck a nerve with me. The number one thing that I've carried with me that Howard reconfirmed in my guitar world is visualization.
You don't need your guitar in your hands. You have a guitar in your head. You don't need a bass in your hands. You have one in your head. You can hear it, you can see it, and you can feel it, and you can actually play that thing while you're waiting for a bus. Visualization, write it down. You know what it is.
So I'm always grateful to Howard for that. He's just, well, my ultimate mentor. And as long as I teach guitar and I can still hold one, Howard's name will continually come out as I talk about guitar playing. Howard always said this. Howard always played this. Howard did this. I can't help it. It's me. That's who I am. So.
My first introduction to HR was listening to Antelope Freeway and Equinox Express elevators, and I knew there was something special happening with this. And that just led to us becoming sort of fascinated with each other's craft. And I didn't realize he was so invested in teaching and educational psychology and aspects and the technology of learning and how it all worked. But as you know, his creative genius was, anything he approached with this inquisitive genius of his.
Together they worked a lot on the concepts of accelerated learning, using time frames, short time frames, eliminating mistakes, using visualization as a tool, the power of limitation by doing fewer things, shorter duration, that type of thing, and also using conscious suggestion, kind of the way you talk to yourself, tools of this nature that really help to accelerate how fast you can learn things.
If you want to learn music real fast, you go about it in a paradoxical manner. You do it real slow. Just the opposite of what you'd expect. If you want to learn a lot of stuff real fast, you work on a very tiny amount of stuff real slow. Isn't that interesting? Contradictory, strange, yes, but true.
We were talking about, and he asked the question, he said, I'm preparing this curriculum for GIT, this Guitar Institute of Technology in LA, and he said, I'd really like to help the students with other things, as well as the, learning the music theory and technique. And one of those things was, he said, sometimes they're pretty anxious, and that interferes with their performance. And I made some comment about, well, you know, you can use hypnosis to relax, mellow out the, calm the nervous system and change your mindset so you're not afraid and you don't sabotage your performance. And it was like, from that was like a quick quantum leap on Howard's part to, okay, how does learning work? How can we change their brains? And that became woven into the GIT curriculum because the mental rehearsal was accelerating that psychomotor process.
So we need to train ourselves in something that we haven't been trained in, and that's recall. See, when we keep staring at the paper and practicing like this, da da da, clunk, oh darn, da 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 da, clunk, oh darn, da 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 da, clunk, darn, right? We're doing a bunch of mistakes right there. Number one, we're having a miserable time. We hate it. That's the first thing. Another thing, we're making mistakes over and over and over, and we're training our nervous system to make mistakes. And your unconscious mind will make mistakes. It says, if that's what you want, that's what you got.
A lot of our interaction was about how to enhance what the brain and the nervous system are doing together at a subconscious level so that the person is moving past those, thinking about techniques, no trying those techniques, just doing them, and as soon as he does them, now it's a matter of what are the results you're getting and how to change what you're doing to get the results you want as rapidly as you can.
Small, slow, mental review, rehearsal, frequent breaks, be good to yourself. If you want to learn real fast and you're kind of marginal on it, you almost know it but you don't quite know it, go give a lesson on the subject and you'll learn it real good. Now musicians know this. That's another one of the secrets. Become a teacher immediately. I gave my first guitar lesson about a week after I took my first guitar lesson. And I found out right there, whoa, does this work? And I've been giving guitar lessons all my life, just part of being a player.
MI was interesting as it started off kind of a figment of his imagination and wanting to take the seminar concept and localize it into one area, that being LA, and that way he wouldn't be traveling so much and really have the students come to the school from all over, which is kind of what they did. And he had developed a core curriculum for that, along with a handful of other guys that worked on that, including Don, and Ron Eshte was in there as well. So when it first started, it was much more jazz-oriented. HR would come in and do orientations for the new incoming students and things like that. And at that point, it was getting really large, a very big school at that point. The school grew and grew and developed. The curriculum changed to accommodate the styles. So you would have teachers that would develop curriculum for their class and that would fit whatever it is that they're teaching, and it kind of got away from the core curriculum that HR had worked on for all those years, and it kind of diluted it, and it started to go in a different direction. At the same time, he was being less and less involved with the school and wasn't there as much as he was in the beginning. There ended up being bad blood between the administration and HR, and it went into a big messy lawsuit and things of that nature, which we won't go into.
Howard, in my very last conversations with him, he was foreseeing already how music was going to be done on the internet. And we're talking 1990, 91. There wasn't even dial-up yet. He was already saying, well, what I imagine is there's going to be this computer library everyone would be able to access them with computers, and we would be able to distribute these things to different people through their computers. He was describing the internet and how a lot of like educational stuff is being done on the internet now.
But ultimately what he did is he taught me how to learn. That was the biggest thing, you know, how to learn efficiently, and he was a master of conveying the most effective way to accelerate your learning process. The task increases to fill the time allotted for its completion. That's one of Parkinson's laws that HR quoted quite often.
And he was a genius. You know, you want to look at a music guy, the man was a genius. You want to look at an educator, he came up with ideas from disparate parts of different disciplines and put them into a curriculum, and it worked. I mean, he was proud of almost all of his students. I mean, I was doing a lot of commercials one time. He said, I want you to hire this guitar player. I went, okay. Her name was Jennifer Batten. She went on to play with Michael Jackson. She's like one of the most wonderful players you'd ever want to listen to. But Howard said, you got to hire her. Okay. I remember I didn't even think twice. He'd mentor him and get him into doing something and then go on to something else. And it was just amazing to watch. His kindness just extended across the board.
I didn't know he was starting a new guitar style, you know, which is what George Benson told me. But when I sat in to play with George Benson about 4 or 5 years ago at NAMM, you know, he said, I have to ask you some questions about Howard Roberts. So he took me in the back room and we spent an hour. He wanted to know what Howard was like, what he looked like, how he played the guitar, and all this stuff personal about Howard, see. So we're sitting there talking. I said, why is it that you're asking me about Howard? He says, he was my idol. Howard Roberts was my idol on guitar. I love that man, the way he played.
That tune is the Count Basie tune called Shiny Stockings, and he had a certain way of block chording it. He would try to take, as the tune got more climactic and more intense, he would try to recreate the shout chorus that Basie did with horns.
Duke Ellington, Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, and Thelonious Monk all asked me to go out on the road with them. And I didn't do it because of Howard telling me about it, because I was starting to do studio work. And his advice to me was, if you're going to do the studio work, you got to be in town. You can't go out on the road, be on the road anywhere, because it'll be all over. Somebody else will take your place in a second. So I wanted to do studio work. So I wound up taking his advice, and I stayed in town. I wound up having a great career in the studios and still be able to play jazz. You know, I've done about 500 movies and a whole bunch of stuff anyway. But it was Howard's advice. Otherwise, I would have taken one of those gigs. You know, and who knows? I probably wouldn't be around today. I don't know.
He was very active in the studios. Had done several recordings. Had founded with Pat Hicks, the music school, GIT at the time. And coincidentally now, I I've been working about the last 10 years at it's now called the MI, Musicians Institute, but it's the continuation of the school he founded. So he's had a big impact on so many musicians here in Los Angeles.
So I'm home and we go to bed about midnight, whatever. I pick up the phone. Hey, Mike. And I knew who it was right away. And I says, Howard. He says, yes, Howard. How you doing, man? And he says, hey, look, man, I got this idea for you to try. And because we would do some of these kind of things. Here's a pattern, man. He said, your first finger on the third string, and you know, I don't remember what he told me now, but it was one of those things, sonic shapes. He says, I got a sonic shape for you to try. And he told me a thing. And he says on the phone, he says, okay, man, great to hear you doing good. Yeah, okay, good to hear from you. No warning, no nothing. Out of the clear blue, I hadn't talked to him in about 2-3 years. He calls me up New Year's Eve at 3:30 in the morning. I loved it. That was hard. It brought tears to my eyes, you know. Yeah.
You learn what you want to learn when you want to learn it, at the speed of thought. In music, we end up looking back over our shoulder into the past a lot. We have to live with an awareness of the past and the present and the future all simultaneously in one thought. And musicians are always in that world of seeing time in 3 places at the same time.